The rifle's barrel pressed cold against Marlowe's temple as he stepped onto the porch of the general store, his boots crunching through the December snow. "We just want a warm meal." "Please," came the desperate voice from behind him. He turned to see a woman clutching a small girl, both barefoot in the bitter Montana wind, her breath forming desperate clouds in the air. "Back away from them, stranger," growled Cornelius Grimm, the store owner, his weapon steady. "These thieves been causing trouble all week." Marlowe's green eyes flicked between the gun and the shivering pair. The woman, maybe 25, with wild auburn hair and fierce hazel eyes, held her daughter protectively, both of them wearing nothing but thin cotton dresses that had seen better days. Their feet were blue-black with cold. "Lower your weapon," Marlowe said quietly, his hand moving instinctively toward his own holster. "This ain't your business, Drifter," Grimm spat. "They've been stealing food, disrupting my customers. I took bread crusts from your trash." The woman interrupted, her voice shaking with cold and fury. "My daughter hasn't eaten in 3 days. A little girl no more than 6, buried her face in her mother's shoulder." Marlowe noticed the way the woman's arms trembled, not from fear, but from the bone-deep cold that was slowly killing them both. "How much for a hot meal and shoes?" Marlowe asked, pulling out a leather pouch heavy with gold coins. Grimm's eyes widened at the sight of the money, but his grip remained firm on the rifle. $20 each. It was highway robbery, but Marlowe counted out $40 without hesitation. And a room for the night. 50 more. "Done," Marlowe tossed. The coins at Grimm's feet. "Now lower that gun before I take it from you." Something in Marlowe's tone made Grimm step back. The Drifter had the look of a man who'd killed before and would again if pressed. The rifle slowly lowered. The woman stared at Marlowe with a mixture of suspicion and desperate gratitude. "Don't need your charity," she whispered, though her teeth chattered so violently she could barely speak. "It's not charity," Marlowe replied, removing his heavy coat and wrapping it around both mother and daughter. "It's common decency." As he guided them into the store's warmth, he caught the woman's scent wild roses mixed with pine and something indefinably fierce. She stumbled, and he caught her arm, feeling the electric shock that ran between them. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Solda," she whispered, leaning into his strength despite herself. "And this is Penny. I'm Marlowe." He looked down at the little girl, who was peeking at him with curious blue eyes. "Let's get you both warm." But as they stepped inside, Marlowe noticed the wanted poster on the wall, a sketch that looked remarkably like a solda with the words "reward, $500 dead or alive" printed beneath. His jaw tightened as he realized he'd just bought safety for the most wanted woman in 3 territories. And he was already falling in love with her. The hot stew burned Isolda's throat, but she didn't care. Beside her, Penny devoured cornbread, with the desperate hunger of the truly starved, while Marlowe sat across from them in the general store's back room, his dark eyes never leaving Isolda's face. "You saw the poster," she said quietly, not looking up from her bowl. "I saw it." His voice held no judgment, only curiosity. Isolda's laugh was bitter. "Aren't you going to ask what I did to earn a bounty that size? Figure you'll tell me if you want to?" Marlowe leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "Right now, I'm more interested in why you're running barefoot through a blizzard." Penny had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder, finally, warm and fed. Isolda stroked her daughter's hair, gathering courage for the truth. "My husband's husband's Judge Mortimer Blackthorne," she began, watching Marlowe's expression darken with recognition. "Most powerful man in 3 counties. When I tried to leave him, he had me declared mentally unfit and took Penny away. You took her back. I broke into his mansion during his Christmas party, found him ... entertaining ... one of the serving girls. She couldn't have been more than 15. Isolda's voice turned razor-sharp. When I threatened to expose him, he came at me with a poker from the fireplace." Marlowe's jaw clenched. "And I shot him." The words fell like stones into still water. "Not dead more's the pity, but enough to grab Penny and run. Been running for 2 weeks now." "Where were you heading? Anywhere he can't find us?" California. Maybe Oregon Territory? She looked down at her sleeping daughter. Doesn't matter now. Not going to make it much further. Marlowe stood abruptly, moving to the window. Outside, snow fell in thick sheets, and in the distance, he could see torches moving through the darkness. A search party. They're coming, he said grimly. Isolde's face went white. How many? 8? Maybe 10? He turned back to her, and something wild and dangerous flickered in his eyes. There's a back way out through the storeroom leads to the stables. My horse can carry all 3 of us. You don't understand, Isolde whispered. Blackthorn will kill you just for helping us. He's not just a judge. He owns half the territorial legislature. The sheriff, the marshals, let me worry about Blackthorn. Marlowe lifted Penny gently, the little girl stirring but not waking. Right now, we need to move. As they crept through the back of the store, Isolde caught Marlowe's arm. Why are you doing this? You don't even know us. He looked down at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her heart race, a fierce protectiveness mixed with something deeper, more dangerous. Because he said quietly, I've been waiting my whole life for someone worth fighting for. Before she could respond, the front door of the store exploded inward. Grimm's voice rose in panic. They went out back. Outlaw! The drifter took them out back. Marlowe cursed, pushing Isolde toward the stable door. Run. Get to my horse, the black stallion. If I don't make it, you're coming with us. Isolde's voice was fierce with sudden determination. I won't lose anyone else. She stopped, horrified by what she'd almost said. But Marlowe had heard it, and his smile was sharp as a blade. Then we better all make it out together. The sound of boots thundered closer as they plunged into the storm. Marlowe's stallion, Tempest, thundered through the snow-covered wilderness, his hooves drumming a desperate rhythm against the frozen ground. Isolde clung to Marlowe's back. Penny secured between them, while rifle shots cracked through the night air behind them. There, Isolde shouted over the wind, pointing toward a dark shape looming against the mountainside. That old mining camp, we can hide there. Marlowe veered Tempest toward the abandoned buildings, but as they crested a ridge, he saw the trap. More torches flickered in the valley beyond. Blackthorn's men had circled around, cutting off their escape route. Hold on. Marlowe pulled Tempest to a sliding stop behind a cluster of boulders, just as bullets whined overhead. Isolde could see at least 15 men closing in from both sides. Give up my wife and daughter, stranger. The voice that boomed across the canyon was cultured, commanding and filled with cold fury. Judge Mortimer Blackthorn had come himself. You're outnumbered 20-1. Marlowe helped Isolde and Penny down from the horse, his mind racing. The mining camp was 50 yards away across open ground. They'd never make it, but in the rocks around them, can you shoot? He asked Isolde quietly. Her smile was sharp as winter steel. Blackthorn taught me. Ironic, isn't it? His spare revolver. The mine entrance has a heavy wooden door. Get Penny inside and barricade it. I'll hold them off. No. Isolde's eyes blazed with fierce determination. We fight together or not at all. Before Marlowe could argue, Penny tugged. On his coat? Mama, the little girl whispered. There's a cave behind those rocks. The bears used to sleep there. Marlowe and Isolde exchanged glances. A cave would give them better defensive positions, if it wasn't a dead end. Show us, Isolde whispered. They crept through the rocks, Penny leading them to a narrow opening, barely visible in the darkness. Inside, the cave stretched back into blackness, but it was deep enough to hide in, and narrow enough that attackers could only come at them one at a time. Perfect, Marlowe breathed. Isolde, take Penny to the back. No. We fight together. She repeated firmly. Penny, sweetheart, you hide in the deepest part, and don't come out no matter what you hear. The little girl nodded solemnly and disappeared into the shadows. Outside, Blackthorn's voice grew closer. I know you can hear me, my dear wife. This man has filled your head with romantic nonsense, but you belong to me, you and the child. I never belonged to you, Isolde shouted back, her voice echoing. Off the cave walls? And neither does Penny. Oh, there you are. Blackthorn's chuckle was cold as the grave. Come out now, and I'll make your friend's death quick. Refuse, and I'll let my men have their fun with you while he watches. Marlowe's grip tightened on his rifle. How many bullets do you have? 12. Isolde checked her weapon with practiced ease. You 23. He looked at her in the dim moonlight filtering through the cave entrance, memorizing every line of her face. Isolde, if we don't make it, she pressed her lips to his, cutting off his words. The kiss was desperate, fierce, full of everything. They hadn't had time to say, "Make it," she whispered against his mouth. All of us. The first shadow appeared at the cave entrance, a gunman trying to peer inside. Marlowe's rifle cracked, and the shadow fell. That's one, he murmured. Outside, Blackthorn's roar of fury shook the mountainside. Kill them. Kill them all. The real battle was about to begin. As more shadows crept toward their hiding place, Isolde and Marlowe pressed back to back in the cave entrance, their weapons ready. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, and in the darkness behind them, Penny clutched a small object she'd found in the cave's depths, as something that might just save them all. The cave erupted in gunfire and smoke. Marlowe's rifle spoke again and again, each shot dropping one of Blackthorn's men who tried to storm their position. Beside him, Isolde's revolver barked with deadly precision. Blackthorn had indeed taught her well. 6 down, Marlowe growled, ducking as bullets chipped stone inches from his head. 7, Isolde corrected, smoke curling from her weapon's barrel. But they were burning through ammunition fast, and Blackthorn had men to spare. Worse, Marlowe could see torches being lit outside. They were planning to smoke them out. Mama. Penny's voice echoed from the cave's depths. Mama, come quick. Isolde started to turn, but Marlowe caught her arm. Keep shooting. I'll check on her. He found Penny 30 feet back in the cave, standing beside what looked like an old minecart filled with strange crystalline rocks that glowed faintly in the darkness. What is it, sweetheart? It's the Thunder Rocks. Penny's eyes were bright. With excitement, Daddy, she caught herself. The bad man used to tell stories about miners who found Thunder Rocks. They make big booms. Marlowe's blood ran cold as he realized what he was looking at. Dynamite. Old mining dynamite, probably unstable as hell after years in the damp cave. One wrong move and they'd all be blown to kingdom come. But it also gave him an idea, desperate. Insane idea. He gathered several sticks, their surfaces slick with moisture and age. Back at the cave entrance, Isolde was down to her last few bullets. They're bringing up torches, she panted. Going to smoke us out? Not if I can help it. Marlowe showed her the dynamite. Can you keep them back for 2 minutes? Isolde's eyes widened as she understood his plan. That could bring down the whole mountain. Better than letting Blackthorn take you and Penny back. His eyes were fierce with determination. Do you trust me? She looked at him, this man who'd risked everything for strangers, who'd stood by her when anyone else would have collected. The bounty ant knew her answer. With my life. Outside, Blackthorn's voice boomed across the rocks. Throw in the torches! Burn them out! Marlowe struck a match, touching it to the fuse of the dynamite bundle. The spark caught, began racing toward the explosives with a deadly hiss. When I throw this, we run, he told Isolde. Straight back to Penny, then toward that side passage we passed. There might be another way out, and if there isn't... His grin was wild and reckless. Then we go out together. The fuse was halfway burned. Blackthorn's men were creeping closer, torches ready to throw. Marlowe pulled Isolde close, kissed her hard and fast. I love you, he said simply. I love you too, she whispered back. Then he hurled the dynamite toward the cave entrance and grabbed her hand. They ran through the darkness, scooping up Penny as they passed, racing deeper into the mountain as the fuse burned down behind them. 5 seconds, Marlowe shouted. They dove into the side passage just as the world exploded. The roar was deafening. The cave shaking like the wrath of God. Rocks crashed down. Dust filled the air, and for a terrifying moment Isolde thought they were going to be buried alive. Then, gradually, the rumbling stopped. In the silence that followed, a faint breeze touched their faces, air flowing from somewhere ahead. Another way out. But as they helped each other stand in the darkness, they could hear something else. Blackthorn's voice, furious and very much alive, shouting orders outside the blocked cave entrance. Dig them out. They're trapped and they're like rats. Penny tugged on Marlowe's coat. The wind smells like horses, she whispered. Marlowe understood immediately. Somewhere ahead. The cave opened into a canyon or valley, probably where the miners had stabled their animals during the old days. Had a chance. But they had to move fast, before Blackthorn's men found another way in. Hand in hand, the three of them stumbled deeper into the darkness. Following the scent of freedom, the hidden canyon beyond the cave was a miracle, a sheltered valley, where wild horses grazed among the ruins of the old mining operation. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the snow-covered peaks pink and gold. Look, Penny breathed in wonder, pointing to a herd of mustangs drinking from a half-frozen stream. But Marlowe wasn't admiring the scenery. His sharp eyes had spotted something else. Smoke rising from the other side of the valley, and the glint of sunlight on metal. Blackthorn's men had found them. How Isolde whispered, clutching Penny close. Tracker, Marlowe said grimly. Probably. Been following our trail since we left the store? He studied the approaching riders, at least 8 men, armed and determined. We can't outrun them on foot. That's when Penny broke away from her mother and walked calmly toward the Mustang herd. The wild horses should have spooked and run, but instead they seemed drawn to the little girl, nickering softly as she approached. Penny, no? Isolde started. Forward, but Marlowe caught her arm. Wait, he said quietly. The largest stallion, a magnificent black with a white blaze, levered his head to Penny's level. The child whispered something they couldn't hear, and incredibly, the horse knelt down like a trained circus animal. I can talk to them, Penny called back to the amazed adults. Grandmama taught me before she died. She said it was a gift. Other horses were moving closer now, as if answering some silent call. Within minutes, 3 of the gentlest-looking mares had presented themselves, ready to be ridden. I'll be damned, Marlowe breathed. Language Isolde said automatically, but she was staring at her daughter in amazement. The sound of approaching hoofbeats broke the spell. Blackthorn's men were less than a mile away and closing fast. They mounted quickly, Isolde and Penny on one mare, Marlowe on another, with a third horse as a spare. The mustangs seemed to understand the urgency, breaking into a gallop without being asked. But as they raced across the valley floor, Isolde realized they were heading straight for a dead-end sheer canyon, walls rising hundreds of feet on 3. Size, Marlowe, she shouted over the thunder of hooves. We're trapped. That's when she saw him smile, a wild, reckless grin that made her heart skip. No, he called back. We're home. Ahead of them, carved into the canyon wall itself, was a hidden entrance so well concealed it looked like nothing more than a shadow between rocks. But as they drew closer, Isolde could see it was actually a narrow passage, just wide enough for a horse and rider. Found this place 5 years ago, Marlowe explained as they entered the passage. Been using it as a winter hideout ever since. Passage wound through the rock for nearly a quarter mile before opening into the most beautiful hidden valley Isolde had ever seen. Warm springs fed a crystal-clear lake, and the walls formed a natural amphitheater that trapped heat from the sun. Wild fruit trees grew along the water's edge, and the grass was green even in winter. It's paradise, Isolde whispered, but their pursuers weren't far behind. Even now, she could hear Blackthorn's voice echoing through the passage, getting closer. There's only one way in or out, Marlowe said grimly. We'll have to make a stand here. No. Isolde dismounted, her face set with sudden determination. I'm tired of running. It's time to end this. She walked toward the passage entrance, her spine straight and proud. Mortimer, she called out. I know you can hear me, Isolde. Blackthorn's. The voice was closer now. Come back to me, my dear. We can work this out. The only thing we're going to work out, she replied, her voice carrying clearly through the rocks, is your funeral arrangements. Behind her, Marlowe readied his rifle with a smile. This woman was magnificent when she was angry. And Penny, still sitting on her Mustang, whispered something to the horse that made its ears prick forward with interest. The final confrontation was about to begin. Blackthorn emerged from the passage like an avenging demon, his expensive suit torn and dirty, his silver hair wild with rage. Behind him came 6 of his surviving men, all armed and looking for blood. 26 years of marriage, he snarled at Isolde, and this is how you repay me? Running off with some saddle tramp? 26 years of hell, Isolde shot back, standing, fearlessly in the open. 26 years of your fists, your threats, your sickness with young girls. Blackthorn's face went purple with fury. You lying witch. You're the one who's sick. That's why I had the doctors declare you unfit. Doctors you paid, Marlowe said quietly, his rifle trained on Blackthorn's chest. Just like you paid the sheriff, the judges, everyone who helped you steal that little girl from her mother. She's my daughter, Penny said clearly, sliding down from her Mustang. You're not my papa, never were. Blackthorn's eyes narrowed. What did you say, child? Said you're not my papa. Penny walked forward with the fearless confidence only children possess. My real papa had kind eyes and gentle hands. Mama told me all about him before you made her forget. Isolde's face went white. Penny, what are you saying? The man in the locket, Mama? The one you hide under your pillow and cry over sometimes? That's my real papa, isn't it? Blackthorn laughed harshly. The child's delusional, just like her mother. But something in Penny's words had struck Marlowe like lightning. He stared at Isolde with new understanding. Show me the locket. With trembling fingers, Isolde pulled out a small silver locket she wore on a chain around her neck. Inside was a faded daguerreotype of a young man with green eyes and dark hairs, exactly like Marlowe's. My God, he breathed. Jebediah Tanner. My brother. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Isolde staggered, her hand flying to her throat. Your brother died in the war, she whispered. At Antietam, I got the letter. No, Marlowe said softly. He died of fever in a Confederate prison camp 2 years later. But he talked about you constantly, about the girl he'd married in secret before he enlisted, about the baby that was coming. Penny looked between them with wonder. You're my uncle. I'm your uncle. Marlowe's voice was thick with emotion. And I've been looking for you and your mother for 7 years. Blackthorn's roar of fury shattered the moment. His touching family reunion. Now all 3 of you can die together. He raised his pistol, but Penny was already moving. The little girl whistled the sound like bird song, and suddenly the hidden valley filled with thundering hooves. The Mustang herd poured through the passage like a living avalanche, their eyes wild and their teeth bared. Blackthorn's men scattered in panic as hundreds of horses trampled through their ranks. The judge himself barely managed to scramble up onto a boulder as the herd swept past. When the dust settled, 4 of Blackthorn's men were unconscious. 2 were limping toward the passage in full retreat, and the judge himself was stranded on his rocky perch while angry Mustangs circled below. Call them off, he screamed at Penny. Call them off and I'll let you all go free. Penny looked up at him with Jebediah's green eyes.
Oh no.
She said simply, You hurt my mama. You hurt lots of people.
Ow.
The horses don't like you. I'm a federal judge. You can't do this to me. Actually, Marlowe said conversationally, walking over to stand beneath Blackthorn's boulder. We can. This is still wild territory and you're trespassing on my land. Your land. Marlowe smiled coldly. Filed the claim 5 years ago. It's all legal and proper. He looked up at the trapped judge. Question is, what do we do with you now? 3 months later, the hidden valley had been transformed into a thriving homestead. Marlowe had built a sturdy cabin beside the warm springs, with a garden plot where Isolde grew vegetables and herbs. Penny had made friends with every animal in the valley, from the Mustangs to a family of foxes that lived in the rocks. And today was their wedding day. The ceremony was simple, just the 3 of them, and a circuit preacher who'd agreed to make the dangerous journey into the mountains. But Isolde had never felt more beautiful as she stood in the dress. Marlowe had somehow acquired from the trading post cream-colored silk with tiny pearl buttons, perfect despite their remote location. Do you, Marlowe Tanner, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Marlowe said firmly, his eyes never leaving Isula's face. And do you, Isula Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "Then by the power vested in me by the territorial government, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Marlowe's kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promises for their future together. Penny cheered and clapped, while the Mustang herd nickered their approval from the meadow. After the preacher left, 3 of them sat by the lake in the evening sunshine, watching the horses graze peacefully in the golden light. "What happened to him?" Isolde asked quietly. "To Blackthorn? Last I heard he was working in a silver mine in Colorado," Marlowe replied with satisfaction. "Seems the territorial governor got an anonymous letter detailing his ... activities. With young girls, lost his judgeship, his fortune, everything. And the bounty on my head? Withdrawn when the truth came out. Turns out a lot of people had been waiting for someone to bring Blackthorn down." He squeezed her hand. "You're free, Isolde, completely free." Penny, who had been weaving flowers into chains, looked up suddenly. "Uncle Marlowe, are you going? To be my new papa now?" Marlowe's throat tightened with emotion. "If you'd like me to be, I'd like that very much." She threw her arms around his neck. "Papa Marlowe." As the sun set behind the canyon walls, painting the valley in shades of rose and gold, the 3 of them sat together in perfect contentment. They had found each other against impossible odds, survived dangers that should have destroyed them, and built something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. The warm springs bubbled softly beside them. The horses grazed peacefully in the meadow, and somewhere in the distance, nightbirds began their gentle songs. "We did it," Isolde whispered, leaning against her new husband's shoulder. "We actually did it." "Did what?" Marlowe asked softly. "Found our warm meal," she said with a smile. "Found our home." And in the growing darkness of their hidden valley, surrounded by the family they'd fought so hard to protect, they knew they would never be cold or hungry or alone again. The love story that had begun with a desperate plea in the snow had become something eternal, a testament to the power of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds that hold true families together. As Penny fell asleep between them under the star-filled sky, Marlowe and Isolde held each other close and whispered promises that would last a lifetime and beyond. They had found their happily ever after in the most unlikely place of all in each other's arms.